Hey everyone, this is Dr. Lauren Fitz here. So this episode, we are going to be talking about adult situations like birth control. So if you have little ears around, you might want to save this episode for listening later when they aren't around. But just wanted to give you guys a heads up because we will be talking about adult-like issues that might not be appropriate for the young ones. So thank you again for listening. Hope you enjoy. You are listening to the Fitz and Healthy podcast. I am your host, Dr. Lauren Fitzgerald, also known as Lauren Fitz. I'm a medical doctor, a fitness instructor, an entrepreneur, a health and fitness coach, but most importantly, I am a lover of life. And here on the Fitz and Healthy podcast, I intend to give you a ton of great information and knowledge that will serve as potential power so that you can live a life by design and make it more fits and healthy. And don't forget to listen to the disclaimer at the end. I'm not your doctor, yo. All right, enjoy the episode. Much love. Ciao. Hello and welcome to the Fitz and Healthy podcast. I am your host, Dr. Lauren Fitz, and I am joined by my beautiful co-host, Cinthanie from Cinthanie.com. What's up, girl?
Hey, girl. Hey.
So I feel like this is our first podcast that we've done like in our normal home base in a long time, right? It's been what, 3 weeks since we filmed, right?
2 or 3 weeks, yeah. Because I was gone for 2 weeks.
Yeah, you were in Vegas doing your thing. Before we started filming, you were telling us a few stories that we won't share with everyone.
What happens in Vegas stays
right?
It was a good time though. We were there for my bachelorette party and I got to go with a bunch of my childhood best friends. So it was fun. It was good, but it's definitely something you can only do for a weekend. And
right.
Like after 72 hours, it's time to go home.
Yeah. Well, and actually we are going to talk about like what one of the specific actions that you did on today's show, because we are talking about all things female hormone. Specifically birth control, right? And I'm sure that you're wondering, wait, where are you going with this? I'll make the connection later.
Trying to follow.
Right? But yeah, so last weekend you were in Vegas, the weekend before New Orleans. And then I guess 3 weeks ago was the last time that we were here in our home studios and recording a normal podcast.
Yes.
So we're back, guys. So before we talk about today's topic, which is one that we have been talking about, the fact that we're going to talk about it for quite a while. And I get literally on a regular basis, probably at least 10 to 20 requests daily. Hey, have you done the episode on birth control? Because I'm thinking about getting off of it and blah, blah, blah. Right. And so when we were talking about what we're going to talk about this week, you suggested birth control pills. And that was actually what I had been thinking about too. So sign from the universe that it's time to start the conversation. But I definitely want to tell the listener that this is it's going to be the first of many episodes of the Fitz and Healthy podcast that we talk about female hormones and all of the ways in which they can screw up our lives.
Yes.
So before we do that, I want to go to the review of the week. So Cinthanie, you have one ready and waiting for us to read, right?
I do. Okay. So we have an iTunes review of the week, and this one says, "Staying Fits and Healthy in Orlando, Florida." This is from Orlando, Florida Fit. It says, "I just got done listening to my first podcast, which was episode 10 about fat, and I was blown away. There was a ton of new information that I had never heard, and now I have a new perspective on fat in my diet. And yes, Dr. Lauren Fitz, I'm going to start eating all of my egg and not just the egg white." Yes.
Praise Jesus.
Anyways, I would highly recommend anyone and everyone to listen to these podcasts. You might be surprised, and I know you will enjoy listening to them. Thanks, Fitz and Healthy, for the great information, and hello from Orlando, Florida.
Oh,
so proud of you.
Fit in Orlando. I wish
you're going to eat the whole egg.
Heck yeah. No, I always, people that have followed me online, they know Eat the whole egg, please.
Yes. Yeah.
It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
So Orlando right now, actually, there are a lot of special people in my heart that are in Orlando right now because anyone that has been following me for any amount of time knows that I've been connected to the dance fitness world. And a lot of people, when they first hear my name, Lauren Fitz, they automatically think of Zumba. Even though I never officially taught Zumba, I was officially a Zumba instructor on paper. And that meant the only reason I kept it, honestly, was so I could go to the convention in Orlando, which is happening right now. And this is my second year that I no longer have that certification. I gave that up a couple of years ago because I've been doing my own thing with Club Fitz and my own dance fitness format. But the fact is that a lot of those people are still very near and dear to my heart. And they're all in Orlando. It's around the same time every year. And so just want to shout out to all of my dance fitness friends that are partying it up in Orlando. Be safe. Don't drink too much. Dance your heart out. All that kind of good stuff. So anyway, today we're going to talk about birth control. This is a topic, that you specifically will need to be hearing about. So for the listeners, Cinthanie is 23. She's about to get married to her high school sweetheart, the love of her life. And that's happening, in 2 months?
Girl, 6 weeks.
Holy crap. That's crazy.
By the time this,
dude, I gotta buy my ticket because I'm doing a masterclass in Dallas around that time. So
I know.
So yeah, I need to buy my ticket. The plan.
By the time this episode releases, we will probably be married, won't we?
I don't know. We're kind of ahead. We've definitely stocked up quite a few episodes. It'll be the end of August. It'll be perfect.
It'll be like right before. Oh, right.
Yes. That's awesome.
Don't freak me out.
Right?
Getting so close.
But I know, and I don't want to speak for you, but I know that you've said that you're not ready to have children right away, which
nah,
not so much. Which, we're not here to judge anyone that wants to get married and have kids right away, but
yeah, it's different for everybody.
Yeah, it is. And so, birth control is a topic that, man, it affects, I read somewhere over 100 million women are on birth control. Do you realize the vast enormity of that number? It's crazy. So this is why this is a topic that we get asked about so often, right? So I'm going to first start off by telling people kind of my history. And I actually don't even know your history, if you've ever been on birth control pills or not. But I'm going to first start by telling my story. So I'm 37 years old right now. I actually started taking birth control pills for a reason that 60% of women start it. It's not, the majority of women don't start it because they want to make sure they don't get pregnant. The whole reason why it was even invented, 60% of us women get on birth control because we want control of the PMS, the cramps, really heavy bleeding, the acne that comes along with that time of month, all of the awful things in which the hormone cycle can induce in a female. And so I was one of them. I had terrible cramps to the point my mom let me stay home every now and then from school, but for the most part, I just remember going to school and just being miserable for that day or two. You just want to curl up in bed and not be around anyone and just kind of put a heating pad on your back and take Midol and Advil. And that's what I did. Right.
Yeah.
So I went, and I wasn't sexually active. I wasn't actually sexually active till I got to college. So I definitely didn't need to be on birth control to prevent pregnancy. Right. And so that was probably about 15 or 16. And I literally was on birth control for over a decade of my life. And granted, in my 20s, I was on birth control because I was in a relationship in which I was sexually active and I did not want to get pregnant. But I was also on it for other reasons as well. Right. So at 26, I believe it was 26, because I got out of the relationship that I was in during med school and most of residency, right in the middle of residency. And that was when, you've probably heard this story before, But I had one of the side effects of birth control, which is called melasma, pregnancy spots, hyperpigmentation. It's often seen in women of lighter skin color. It's a side effect of hormones. And this is why you call it pregnancy spots, because you see it in pregnant women sometimes that are exposed to sun during their pregnancy. So these little cute freckles that I call freckles started to join together into a big blob. And it was not cute. And I got to a point where for the most part, I was like, well, one, I was so drenched in medical school and residency. I really didn't have time to care about my freckles. But I remember there was she was this short Hispanic woman who worked the front desk at the VA in the OR. And the reason I say Hispanic is because she calls me Mija, because she calls all of the young female doctors, Mija, come here. You got some dirt on your face. And I'm like, and I knew the moment she said that, it's not dirt. It's because I'm on birth control. And so that was the first time that I'm like, okay, my vanity was like, all right, you got to get off of it. And that was when it just basically threw my world upside down. I went into basically adult onset acne, all of the symptoms in which got me to start birth control in the first place came back with a vengeance, really terrible cramps. I never really had heavy bleeding, but the acne was something that I didn't deal with as a teenager. So for the first time in my life, I'm in my mid to late 20s and I'm dealing with acne. And I totally now relate with my young teenage adolescent boys who struggle with it, because it's not fun. Like it totally jacks with your sense of like, you don't want to go out. You don't want people to see your face because it was just terrible. And that was also when that relationship was ending. So I had a lot of stress, right? So med school, end of a relationship, and getting off birth control. It totally jacked my world up, right? I guess I've been off of birth control for over 10 years now. Wow, man, time goes by fast. It's crazy. Woo! And I still think that I suffer long-term side effects from being on birth control. And so first things first, let me ask you, what is your history with birth control? Have you ever
actually have never been on any form of birth control?
You're so smart.
Ever.
So smart. Look at you.
Which is so funny because most people are like, you're so stupid. Like, you're so dumb. Like, I don't tell people whenever like it's up in conversation, my friends are talking about it. I'm just like, yeah, girl, birth control problem.
That's awesome.
Because if I tell them, they're like, oh, you're so stupid. How are you not pregnant? I'm like, well.
No, in fact, just for respect of privacy, one of my closest friends, when I first met her and was getting to know her, she told me that she and her husband don't do birth control because they had problems getting pregnant and they had to, get pregnancy help to get pregnant. So I mean, I've said to her, oh, you're stupid. But it's funny because how much I have changed and how much my mindset has changed and my belief system has changed. So for the listener that this is your very first time listening, I am what I like to call a Western medicine doctor with Eastern medicine mind. And so, no, I'm not an OBGYN or a family practitioner or internal medicine doctor. I was an anesthesiologist. I actually gave up practice of anesthesia almost 2 years ago now. And, but we go through med school. I got my MD in 2005 and I've taken care of plenty of pregnant women. I've taken care of plenty of women that don't want to get pregnant. I've prescribed birth control pill for many women, not just to make sure that they don't get pregnant. And man, if I only knew then what I know now, there'd be a lot that I would change for my own health and for the health of my patients that I took care of. And so now that we have this platform in which people listen to us and gain this knowledge that's potential power, I want to use this platform to get people to start thinking. And I will start this off by saying that I am not here to judge any single person that's listening to this broadcast, because you ultimately, at the end of the day, it is your choice. It's not your doctor's. It's not your spouse's or your partner's. It's not anyone else's decision except for yours. And if you don't feel comfortable in whatever method that you're using, you need to get in touch with that and realize that it's your body and you have to do what is right for you. And there are definitely some circumstances that I think birth control pill might be the best way. Like, I did residency in San Antonio, and the teenage pregnancy population, do you want to guess the youngest pregnant patient that I ever took care of?
I really don't. I don't.
Just try.
12.
Dude, you're good. Yeah.
Oh, don't tell me that's no. Don't tell me I'm right.
No. Yeah. It's crazy. I mean, I remember walking in to pre-op her and literally thinking, wow. Biologically speaking, the moment that a female starts to menstruate and have her period, she's primed and ready to get pregnant. So she's sexually active, and she ovulates, and that egg meets with sperm. It's what happens. But there's definitely certain patient populations that I do think birth control pill is the better of the two bad options, because bringing babies into this world in dire straits, and dude, I don't want to get into the whole that topic.
I'm not here to talk politics.
Nope, I'm not. I'm going to just take a gulp of my San Pellegrino water and change the subject. No, but seriously, so before we talk about this, I do want to establish that, always with Cinthanie and I, it's a judge-free zone, and we are just here to give you information so that you can have this potential power at your fingertips. Ultimately, what you decide to do with all of this power is up to you, because it has the ability to change your life. And then it has the ability to just sit there in your brain and be like, oh yeah, I remember them talking about that, but I'm going to still do what I do. And you know what? At the end of the day, it's your life, but we are here to help you be able to live a life by design that's more fits and healthy. So, okay. So first things first, tell me some of the, because for the listener, one of your many roles on this show is you're the millennial, you're the non-medical person, even though you were a dental assistant for short.
I was in the medical field for 6 years, but I know how to clean your teeth, and that's,
right. So
you
essentially,
say I'm qualified.
Okay. I don't want to discount your time, because I've actually got some friends that are the dental assistants, and they're awesome, smart women. But the fact is, you are representing the lay person that doesn't know medical anything, right?
Yeah.
So what are some common things that you think about when you hear the birth control pill?
Just
or birth control in general?
Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
I think of like a million different things, because there's one that you can get in your arm. There's pills that you can take. There's ones that you can insert, then take out. Like, to me, it's always just sounded so like overwhelming and confusing, because I know everybody's body is different.
Right.
And everybody that I've ever talked to about it is just like, oh, you just have to keep trying different ones until you find one that works for you. I'm like, really?
Okay. All right. Fair enough. And a side note to that, I just want everyone to caution who you take advice from, because I mean, come on, if it's, I could go to a bad place, but I'm not going to
their advice, but
okay. So that's a good place to start. Let's talk about different birth control methods. And we are going to go everywhere from the pharmaceutical route to procedures to actual natural methods, right? And so what are some pharmaceutical things that you think of?
Well, birth control pills, like the prescription itself.
Okay. All right. So you have birth control pills, and you have different kinds of birth control pill, meaning the amount of hormones that they have. You have some birth control pills that will falsely make you never have a period. the fact is that birth control pills won't actually make you have a period. They just make you the way that they are. They make you slough off your endometrial lining. But that is something that a lot of people don't realize, is that they think, okay, well, I'm on birth control, and you take, the 3 weeks of hormones and then the 1 week off, and that's when you have your period. Well, technically speaking, that's your period, but not really, because the whole point of the whole ovulation cycle and having your period is so that you can prep your body to get pregnant, right? And so now you're taking these exogenous hormones to prevent your body from doing that, right? So you've got the pill. You've got, I don't even know if they make the patch anymore, because there were a ton of lawsuits. I can say specifically, I've tried the pill, in which you take every day. And we'll talk about some of the side effects if you don't do that. I've tried the patch, which is basically a patch that you wear for a week at a time. And I remember because I tried the patch when I was in medical school, and I thought it would be easier, because if you don't take birth control pill at the same time every day, it puts you at risk for the actual birth control part of the birth control pill not working and you getting pregnant, right? So that was when I was in my serious relationship, and I did not want to get pregnant. So the worry of not taking it every day at the same time, because I was on call, I was starting to take call as a med student, and my life was crazy and hectic schedule, right? So I thought, okay, this patch, I can put it on. And this was before the day and age of smartphones being able to set your alarm. But for the most part, try to remember, like, every Sunday, put this patch on. But it had such a visceral response. Literally, I could predict within the few hours of the spike of hormones would actually hit my system, because I would get nauseated and have to throw up. And that's what I did freaking every week that I used the patch. Crazy, right? Like I want to go back to my 20, however old self, and just shake my head and like, what were you thinking? That's not natural, right? Yeah. And then that's also, I won't call out this particular company, but there's a company that makes patches that because the skin is a great way to get medicine, right? Transdermally. I mean, we use the skin for like pain patches, for scopolamine patches to prevent nausea, or when you're going out on a boat or whatever. We use them in anesthesia as well to prevent post-op nausea, vomiting. So it's a great way to absorb medicine through the skin, right? And there's this one particular company that has them, you absorb vitamins and minerals through it. And I hated this might be a little gross, but like the buildup of the sticky stuff that keeps the patch on for a week. Yeah. Like, I'm like, I don't want to do that the rest of my life. That's not sustainable, right?
Yeah, no.
But okay, so a patch is another thing. There is the Nuva ring, which is basically a vaginal ring. And I believe that both the patch and the ring, and correct me if I'm wrong, anyone that's listening to this, because I've got lots of my friends that I used to practice medicine with that listen to the Fitz and Healthy podcast. So any of my OBGYN friends that are listening, if you want to call me out and you're wrong, I'm not 100% sure, but I'm pretty sure that both the patch and the Nuva ring both had major lawsuits, because there were lots of females having strokes and blood clots, because that is one of the side effects that you can get from taking birth control pills. We also have another form of, not the pill, but you're still getting hormones, is an IUD, and then a subcutaneous, basically, implant, right? And an IUD, not all IUD. So IUD stands for intrauterine device. It has to be placed by an OBGYN. I don't think, maybe family practitioners can place them. I'm not sure. I would guess so, because a lot of people use their family practice docs as their GYN. Yeah. But you do have to have it placed, and it releases hormones into your body, so that it's essentially doing what the pill would be doing, right? But these are all exogenous hormones that are not from your body, right? All to prevent a process that naturally happens that prepares a female to have a baby, right? Because we wouldn't survive if we didn't have that natural process. Yeah. The Norplant, there's a few different names for it, but there is one that you basically, you have to have a OBGYN do this little procedure. It's bedside procedure. They use local anesthetic. They numb up the skin and they basically place it right underneath the skin. And if you have a patient that's thin enough, you can actually palpate it and feel it's crazy. Yeah, gross. But it's a good option for if you have a female daughter that is sexually active, because you parents out there, you gotta recognize the fact you cannot control.
You gotta be real with it.
You gotta be real with it. And these are some times that I think that it might be necessary. But that being said, in a utopian world, I would prefer to go the more natural route and not have all of these exogenous hormones that are not naturally found in the body dictating what goes on with the body. And for the listener that's never heard me talk about exogenous versus endogenous. So those are two different words that you're going to hear a lot when we talk about hormones. So exogenous, EX, means it's from outside of the body. Endogenous, END, is basically made from within. And so endogenous hormones, we all have them. Most of us have imbalanced endogenous hormones because of multiple factors in our diet, in our environment, in our daily routines and habits. All of these things in nowadays 2017 living basically jacked all those endogenous hormones up, right? And we're going to talk about that in a little bit. What are some natural methods that don't involve exogenous hormones that you can think of when it comes to birth control?
I don't know if it's appropriate to say.
So this is our warning for moms. If you have kids listening, just turn it down for the next minute, and then I know where you're going to go with this.
Okay, Mom, turn it down.
I'm going to sip my Pellegrino while you talk about
No, because you'll spit it out when I say it.
So true.
So wrap it before you tap it. And the pull-out method.
Oh my God. Oh, that's awesome. Woo! Wrap it before you tap it. I love it.
Don't be a fool. Protect your tool.
Do you have any more?
I don't know. Let me think about it.
Right? Oh my gosh. So, okay. Good. Any other ones?
No. Just
okay.
those two.
You got two of the major ones. And I might be blushing for those that are watching on the Fitz and Healthy YouTube channel. No, but
whatever, you're not the one that had to say it.
This is true.
Thanks.
It's true. So this is a topic that we definitely need to talk about. So other methods that don't involve exogenous hormones, besides using condoms and the pull-out method, are truly having a female get in touch with their monthly cycle and knowing those 4 to 6 days out of every month that they have a potential of getting pregnant. And when you are off birth control and when your body is in a balance with hormones, rhythm method, if you will, knowing your body's own rhythm of, okay, this is my day one of my cycle. A standard cycle lasts 28 days. So typically that midpoint in the cycle. So day one is when you first start having your period. And then day 28 is that day right before you start your period, right? So it's typically day usually 12, 11 to about 17, 18. So there's a day, about 4 to 6 days in your cycle that's right in the smack dab middle when you're ovulating. And that is the time which, if you're going to get pregnant, that's when it's going to happen. Okay. So being in tune with your body. And there's a ton of different apps. There's one, I should have written.
I was just going to ask you about apps and if you felt they're reliable.
I think that they are definitely a helpful method to use with other methods. If that's the only method you're using, statistically speaking, it's good to be in tune with your body. But if you are like me and you're like, no, I don't want to have a baby, so I'm going to have method 1, 2, and 3 to make sure that I don't. But then there's some people that are like, like after you get married, you're not planning on having kids anytime in the next few years, but if it happens, then you're going to embrace it, right?
Mm-hmm.
So
knock on wood.
Right. Yeah. You're going to take that back from the universe. Universe, that's not what we're asking for. Just saying.
Don't absorb that.
No. But the fact is that being in tune with your body and when you're ovulating definitely helps give female power. And so there's one, it's called the Daisy app, where basically you have to take your temperature every day. And that's a reliable one. That's really good. There's one, I want to say it's called Daily Flow, that I wanted to check out. I don't use any of these. I use good old paper and pen, and I know day one, and I always just mark day one so that I know typically. And it's crazy because when I'm 10 years out from being on birth control, but when like I have stress in my life, it will affect my cycle and how many days and whatnot. So being in tune with that is very helpful for a female. There's a few other options that we're going to talk about later that are not used very often because there's not a lot of money to be made. And that's the reality of it. When I tell you that 100 million females are on birth control, can you imagine if all 100 million of them heard everything that we're talking about today and stopped? I mean, we would probably have hitmen sent out to murder us. And, truly, like I joke about that. But the fact is that these big pharmaceutical companies don't want voices like yours, like mine, like other people that are in this health and fitness community of getting back to nature and getting back to the way in which humans were meant to live. And we weren't designed to be on prescription medicine. Bottom line, right? That's not natural. And that's why I think everyone should have a good naturopathic doctor and a good Western medicine doctor. And the Western medicine doctor, if you want to make sure that you don't need them, you take care of yourself and do preventative medicine.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So, okay. So birth control pills. So first things first, let's just talk about where the source of the hormones in those pills come from. And I see you're making a stank.
I just feel like I don't want to know. I've never even taken them, but I still don't want to know.
So you don't know, huh? That stank face was just because you were expecting something bad, huh?
I anticipated that it's bad.
Do you have any guess?
I feel like you said something about urine.
I did.
Dang it! I was hoping that was a figment of my imagination, and then it's not
true. That's awesome. Okay, but what urine from where?
Doesn't it come from urinals?
No. No. Okay. Yeah, so it's horse urine.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
That's still nasty, but
it's still nasty.
Not as bad as I was thinking.
It's still nasty. So just like we talk about when we're telling a person you should care about the food that you eat and you should buy meat that's not conventionally raised, because conventionally raised meat has been given all sorts of hormones. Like, you don't want unnatural hormones consumed into your body, whether you're eating it, drinking it, putting on your skin, or taking it by pill form, right? So what about the idea of taking hormones from horse urine and putting them into the lab and putting them into a pill and taking them every day is okay? Like, seriously, I mean, it's just not natural, right?
No.
Secondly, let's talk about all of the things in which birth control does to you. Okay. So, in my opinion, birth control pills are the biggest hormone disruptors, endocrine disruptors that you can take. And we have talked, and we will continue to talk about different endocrine disruptors. So endocrine is basically a word for hormone. It's like if you go to an endocrinologist, their specialty is hormones. So anything from diabetes to thyroid to, like, endocrinologist means hormones, right? So endocrine disruptors we need to care about. And a common endocrine disruptor that has nothing to do with birth control, but it still affects some of the same hormones that birth control does is BPA, right? BPA is found in a lot of plastics. It gets into the body and it causes estrogen dominance. And estrogen dominance, there's all sorts of reasons. And we'll probably do just an entire episode on estrogen dominance and why you need to be aware of it and be able to identify it if it's present in your own body or not, and why you should not be in an estrogen dominant state. So BPA is a classic endocrine disruptors. And I mean, we can talk about the different ones, endlessly on a different episode, but birth control pills are, in my opinion, one of the biggest endocrine disruptors because they not only mess with your sex hormones, but they also mess with your thyroid hormone and your cortisol and basically your whole endocrine axis. So in the deep parts of your brain, you have the thing called the hypothalamus and the pituitary gland. And so you've got this whole axis where one talks to the next, then the next sends out hormones that talk to the next. It's basically like an information highway. It's like text messaging. It's like, my dad sends my mom a text message. Hey, when's Lauren going to be available? And then she sends me a text message. Are you going to be available? Yes, I'm going to be available then. So then I tell my dad to buy a ticket. And so it's this whole loop, right?
Yeah.
And if the loop gets messed up, then they end up coming to see me when I'm not here. Right.
Yeah.
And of course that's dumbing it down big time. But the fact is that it
makes sense.
Right. If you disrupt any part of that communication highway, then the body doesn't function the way it's supposed to. Right. Sure. So now you're taking these hormones in which disrupt a natural process in which our bodies were meant to have. Our bodies were meant to go through this whole process of when estrogen goes up and progesterone goes up and then it drops and then we have a period and then it sloughs off our endometrium and it releases an egg. Like that's human nature. That's biology. That's the way God created us, right? And for the people that this is their first time listening, you're going to find a theme that the answer, if you don't have access to a doctor or whatever, the answer can be found by you asking, okay, what did nature design? What did nature intend? Do you really believe that God, the universe, how we were created, wanted 100 million females to be on these pills that disrupt a natural process that we were designed to have every single month, as much as we hate it? But it's not good. And of course it's going to affect, it's already affecting a lot of us, and it will continue to affect generation after generation after generation. One thing that a lot of people don't realize, and this, I've listened to a few different experts talk about this, and when they say this, I totally agree. I think that when a physician prescribes any kind of birth control, there needs to be a sit-down consent that goes along with, look, these are all of the things that have potential to happen to you. Because I know for sure that when I was a teenager, I just spit on myself, sorry. When I was a teenager, I did not have any sort of talk about long-term effects that birth control can have, like increased propensity to have any kind of blood disorders like a clot that could potentially lead to a stroke, increased likelihood of having breast cancer, increased likelihood of infertility and infertility forever. I believe 37% of females that have been on birth control, and it doesn't matter how long they've been on birth control. So if they have a particular genotype, 37% of females that have been on birth control will not be able to conceive.
That's crazy. That
is crazy, right?
That's a really big percentage.
Yeah, it's huge. And I mean, the struggles of infertility are real in 2017. It is something that it's so hard to talk about, but if you open that discussion up anywhere on social media, you will realize, holy crap, this is as much of an epidemic as obesity and diabetes and hypertension. Like, it's crazy. And it's not something that we've had as human species for that long in our history. What it also does is that it increases the liver's production. I'm going to get a little geeky on you. But your liver makes this hormone binding globulin. Okay. That I love your face right now. You're like, all right, I feel like I'm science right now. And it increases the production of that 4 times the normal person that is not on birth control, which basically means that it is disrupting all of your hormones because it's binding them up. And if those hormones are bound up, they're not able to be used the way they were intended. Right.
Yeah.
And so that means that not just your estrogen, your progesterone, but females, our testosterone, we need testosterone.
Yeah.
Like there's so many different reasons that you need testosterone. And that's one of the hormones that can be bound up. Your thyroid, cortisol, all of these hormones that are supposed to be finely balanced, and we start to play God and do abnormal, unnatural things to the body, and it jacks everything up in a big way. So infertility is one thing that I bet you, I mean, I would totally be making this percent up, but I bet you at least over 70% of females that have been started on birth control, not once were discussed all of these potential outcomes.
It makes me think of like those commercials that you see for medications and list off all the symptoms to where you even forget why that medication has a purpose because it has so many risks and symptoms.
Yes.
I feel like that's what it would be like with birth control. If you were sat down and told, okay, birth control helps so that you don't have kids, but it also does all these other things, like you would forget why you even wanted it in the first place.
Exactly. It's funny because every time that I would pre-op a patient for anesthesia, because I mean, there's a lot of risks that come along with anesthesia.
Yeah.
And you know, I always had the same spiel after saying all the risk. And I would always say death, because death is always a risk possibility when you have anesthesia. I don't care how young and healthy you are. Granted, it's very small, but I always had the same spiel that I don't care if it's 1%, because if that 1% happens to you, it's 100%.
Yeah.
And you can't undo a stroke. You can't undo, obviously, death. You can't undo an allergic reaction that leaves you incapable of living life the rest. You can't undo that. And it's so funny because when I was one of the few anesthesiologists that would get down and dirty with the actual risk. And so many times my patients would be like, I've had lots of surgeries. I've never had an anesthesiologist tell me that stuff. And I'm like, I'm trying to cover my, you know what?
Yeah, my buns.
But
you might not remember it, but I will.
Yeah, for real. But you know, the fact is that there are a lot of risks that come along with just birth control pills alone. Okay, so let's talk about exogenous hormones that come from an IUD. Okay, so all of the same side effects of exogenous hormones, but guess what? Also can happen. That intrauterine device that is strategically placed by your physician can dislodge and just get into your abdomen. I can't tell you how many, we call them XLAPs. So exploratory laparotomies, where essentially you go in, I mean, it's major surgery with major risk, and a surgeon goes in and they put 2 cameras in. Well, they put a camera in through the belly button and then 2 different ports that go in through the abdomen. So you minimal 2 to 3 incision sites.
Yeah.
They inflate your belly so that they can see inside. And then they literally go fishing for this intrauterine device that's super tiny. Crazy, right? Do you think that any of those people that had that surgery knew that that was a possibility?
No.
Probably not.
Probably not.
And statistically speaking, it's probably a very small percent. But again, if it's you, it's 100%, right? That being said, one of the methods that I do think is one of the best options is an IUD, but it's a copper IUD. And copper IUDs actually, they have some of the highest percent patient satisfactions, but it's probably the least used contraceptive method out of all of them. I don't know, that or a diaphragm. And a diaphragm we are going to talk about. It's so funny because so many people don't even know what a diaphragm is, and there's a reason, but we'll talk about it in a bit. But copper IUDs are a good non-hormonal method that are a great way to prevent pregnancy. But you do need a physician to insert it and to place it, and that is a procedure. More times than not, the patient is sedated, if anything. Every now and then you have a special patient that will, need some general anesthesia or some deep conscious sedation. But for the most part, anesthesiologists aren't involved. Okay, so we've got all of those things covered, right? Now, the diaphragm. The diaphragm. Do you have any idea what the diaphragm is? Have you ever even heard of it?
I think maybe. I'm not going to guess, so I'm just going to let you tell me.
Well, context clues. I mean, if you think, because just so you know, it doesn't matter how old or how educated a person is. Minus doctors. I mean, all doctors know what a diaphragm is, but it's funny because most people, when I ask them, because I get people asking me questions all the time, if you're against birth control pills, what do you recommend? Right. Yeah. And almost like 9 times out of 10, when I say diaphragm as one of the methods, they're like, what's that? I'm like, what? Oh my gosh, really? It's ridiculous. So a diaphragm, I think, is an excellent method. Essentially, so imagine you've got the vaginal canal, and at the top of the vaginal canal, this is probably going to be an episode that anyone that's going to listen to is not going to listen to while kids are in the car. So
we should probably put a disclaimer.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, but come on, the title is birth control. Like who's going to be listening to a podcast with their kids about birth control? I mean, I'm not judging if you do, and I think this is good stuff for, the right appropriate age.
No, this is important.
Yeah, for sure. But maybe not for your 6-year-old. Just saying.
If you're on your way to soccer and you're in carpool lane,
right?
Don't listen. Different episode.
Right. So you have the vaginal canal, and at the top of the vaginal canal, you have the cervix, right? Mm-hmm. And the cervix, basically, it's like a little. Well, the cervix is what you hear about when, like Kelsey just delivered her baby, right? And so part of the whole labor and delivery part is you measure how dilated the cervix is, because a normal non-pregnant woman, it's 0, so it's closed, right?
Yeah.
But when you have a baby that's ready to be delivered, that cervix opens up, and 10 centimeters is full dilation, and that's when mom's body is ready to start the pushing process, right? So that cervix is what we want to block from any sperm coming up into that area, right? Yeah. So it makes sense. You do a blockade. And so that's really all a diaphragm is. It's a plastic, not cone. It's like a semicircle. Okay. This is a funny analogy. Follow me on this, okay?
Okay.
You know those swimming pool toys that are you like chairs that you have to sit in, but you have to coil them up because they're round, and you have to coil them up perfectly to get them to be put away.
Oh yeah.
You know what I'm talking about?
No, I know what you're talking about.
Okay, because they're circular, right? And so the outside of it, it's basically like a coil, right? Yeah. But to get it to be compact enough to put it away in your little pool toy box or whatever, you can't just put it in its circular place. You have to curl it up. So imagine that on a much smaller level, obviously, where basically you get that round circular coiled plastic thing that looks like a cup essentially, but it's the shape of your cervix, and you coil it up, you insert it, and it basically sits on your cervix like a blockade. It's recommended for you to use spermicide, which is basically a chemical that kills sperm. I'm not a huge fan of spermicide because again, it's not natural. There's
It's
chemicals.
a chemical. Yeah,
exactly. So in my mind, the triple threat mechanism that I would recommend if you're like, I don't want to have anything inserted into my uterus. I don't want to take pills. I want to go all natural as possible. My favorite triple threat is this: know your body. Get on one of those apps that you really get in tune with when you're ovulating. Know that if you have gotten off of birth control, that there are some people that literally will get pregnant the next month, but that is not a majority of people. There are many women that it takes a year, 2 years to get back to where they're actually ovulating. So get in tune with when your body is ovulating. And in the show notes, there's 3 different apps. I cannot remember the third app right now, but the Daisy, the MyFlow, and then it'll come to me, but we'll put it in the show notes for those people that they're interested in an app. And I mean, you can search and do internet. It's called Google.
Yeah.
Get in touch with your own cycle. And then both you and your partner need to have a barrier technique. So condoms are definitely, and I mean, we're not even talking about, preventing STDs to be spread. Like, I mean, that's, you're nowadays, I feel like almost everyone should be using a condom. But condom on the male, diaphragm in the woman, and then the good old pull-out method. Like right there, like that's a triple threat right there.
Yeah.
You're in tune with your body. And just because you're ovulating doesn't mean that you can't have sex, obviously. I mean, that's ultimately when we females want to have sex the most. That's when our sex drive is the highest. And I mean, that's biology. That's how we were
just the
created.
nature of the beast. Yeah,
exactly. But being in tune with, okay, this is if there's a time in which he forgot to pull out, it's not, you don't want to have it when you're ovulating. And just females being aware of when you ovulate, that helps a lot. But a diaphragm, a condom, and good old pull-out method. And that way you're in touch with nature. Your hormones have an ability to function the way that they're supposed to. Yeah. And you're not getting pregnant. Right? So, okay. So we've just talked about a lot. First things first, do you have any questions?
I do actually. What a little bit, yeah. So what I assumed the diaphragm was, I was right.
Okay, good.
I'm glad I didn't guess, but I was right.
Okay.
But I do have a question. So what's the difference between an IUD and a copper IUD? Why is one better than the other?
So they're both the same. Both are IUDs, but they're different methods of preventing pregnancy. And now that I think about it, I don't know why copper actually, like how it prevents pregnancy. Now
because
that I think about it,
that a copper IUD is still releasing hormones though, right?
No, that's the difference, because
it's something to do with the copper then.
Yeah. And I'm trying to think the mechanism of action, why copper in the IUD basically prevents pregnancy. And it could honestly just be a barrier, because it sits basically in that opening that you don't want sperm to get into. So but that's something that I definitely, like I said at the beginning of this, because I wanted to I love my old neighbor, Dr. Goff. Dr. Darren Goff, shout out to OKC. He's like one of the best in Oklahoma City. I worked with him at Mercy when I was an anesthesiologist. He was my neighbor. He and Lil are awesome. His wife is used to be a nurse that was on L&D, and he actually just delivered Kelsey's baby and is going to deliver Cassie's baby in a couple of weeks. So of course I made sure that my girls were seen by the best for sure. Yeah. But I thought about, because he follows me on Facebook, I thought about asking him to be a host, not a host, and to be interviewed on our, a guest. That would be the right word, not a host, a guest. So maybe that might be, write that question down, Robert, so that we know
We need a t-shirt that says, write that down, Robert.
Yeah, for real. Look at the actual IUD device. They both essentially look the same, but their mechanism of action, how they prevent pregnancy, is different because the most common used IUDs actually have hormones that are released.
Yeah.
The copper does not. And that's why I like the copper better, but it's not utilized at all. And I don't really know why. And I'm guessing it's probably has to do with money and pharmaceutical companies and whatnot. But yeah. Okay. What other questions you got?
So this might be, so if you were to have a daughter that is sexually active, what would be the best way of figuring out what method is right for her? Because truthfully, is a teenager going to take the time to make sure that their partner has a condom on, that they have a diaphragm, and that they're going to pull out? I mean, let's just be real. A teenager probably won't do that. So what would be the best thing that you could advise for a mom that has, or a dad that has a daughter that is in that situation?
Right. The lesser of two evils. Because obviously I'm not a fan of her having any kind of hormonal stuff that could potentially make her infertile, that could potentially make her hormones be forever disrupted because of that increased production in her liver of the hormone binding globulin. You know, these are big things that you have to consider. I don't know if an OBGYN would actually put an IUD, a copper IUD, into a teenager.
Yeah.
Because obviously any procedure, not just procedures, but any medicine procedure that is done, there are risks that come along with it.
Yeah.
There's no right answer, honestly.
Okay.
I mean, I can tell you that if you're like, it is what it is. I know my daughter and she's not going to be responsible. You're 100% for sure of that. If you could find an OBGYN that would do a copper IUD, I think that would be your best bet.
Yeah.
The subcutaneous device, the Norplant, I can't remember the brand names for them now. They last up to 3 years, and you don't have to think about it. But then you have to worry about STDs and all that kind of stuff.
Well, yeah, for sure.
See, these are all the reasons that I don't want to have kids. I'm just saying. All of those worries. They're real. And,
yeah, they are.
Living today in 2017, it's not easy for parents.
Yeah.
So I'm not here to judge any of you parents that have teenage daughters, and we're definitely not going to talk about vaccines and HPV vaccines and all that kind of stuff, because at some point I'm sure we will, but I'm not ready to take on that controversial.
No, we're just skimming the surface.
For real.
Let us warm up.
Yeah.
We're still podcast babies.
Exactly. So to sum it up, well, before I sum it up, I definitely want to address the 60% of females that start on birth control, not because they don't want to get pregnant, but because of other symptoms. I think that this is where having a naturopathic doctor and a Western medicine doctor is helpful, because if you can get to the etiology of why they're having the symptoms that they are, because it's actually not normal to have excruciating, terrible PMS symptoms. That's not normal. So that means that there's something else going on in your environment. More than likely, it's probably nutrition. Actually, just the other day, one of my closest friends, close friend from OKC, and she is in my challenge group. I knew that when she first started with me in my challenge group, I knew she had some hormonal imbalances based on some of her stuff that going on. And she messaged me the other day and she was like, "Girl, you were right. This was like I just started my period today, and this was my first time that I didn't have terrible breakout. I didn't have terrible cramps, and I didn't have, moody, crazy," there's a B word coming, bitchiness coming up.
We already decided this isn't a family episode.
Right. For sure. But those are all signs that something else is going wrong, and more than likely it's more than just one thing. But it's if you are eating the standard American diet, sad, just listen to Cinthanie and I and know that it's just not good for you in all forms and fashions. And big food companies will do everything in their power to make you not believe voices like ours, and to keep producing foods that tell your brain that you want more of them, that you're still hungry, that cause cravings, cause your skin to break out, cause your midsection to keep increasing because you continue to have insulin insensitivity growing. It's disrupting all of your hormones.
Yeah.
You know, we've already released the episode of It's Biology, Not Physics. And this just goes back to the fact that both with men and female, it's typically hormonal imbalance, but it's all of the different factors that imbalance these hormones that you really need to get a look at. So if you are one of the many women who got on birth control because, man, I remember my cramps were terrible, but I've been on birth control for 20 years, girl, it's not going to be easy getting off of them, but I definitely recommend. Oh, and we didn't even talk about the risk factors once as you get older, and the risk factors like increasingly go up of all of the factors that cause you to coagulate, to clot. Go like fibrinogen is one of them. Fibrinogen is one of the clotting factors that we measure. We measure in the OR for like liver transplant patients. Like it gives you direct understanding of how well or how not well your body is going to clot and make clots, right? And in women that are on birth control, that are sedentary and like obese and have just been on a flight, those are the ones that I get very worried about forming a DVT, a deep vein thrombosis, it starting in the calf and then getting released into the bloodstream, circles back up to the heart, and it causes a massive pulmonary embolism. And I mean, people can die from these. There's one kind of pulmonary embolism called a saddle emboli, that it's called a saddle because it looks like a saddle because the clot is so big. And when it goes, it basically blocks both of the blood flow to both your right and your left lung, and you die.
That's insane.
And you know, as a 15-year-old, was I explained that? Hell no. No. I all I knew was that I wanted these cramps to go away.
Yeah.
But I will say that I was 100% eating the standard American diet. I mean, love my mom, and my mom listens to all of the episodes, and she loves YouTube, by the way.
I love Mama Fitz.
But mom was just doing what every other American mom was doing, thinking that they were buying healthy snacks for their kids, and it was all on the pantry aisle of the grocery stores, and it's all chemical fake food that disrupts all of your hormones, and I'm sure that what I was eating was the reason why I was having the symptoms that I was during that time of my life. So to sum things up, we're not here to judge you if you decide to do birth control. But if you are on the path of becoming more natural in everything you do, which come to think of it, we need to do an episode on like skincare and healthcare, not healthcare, like makeup, skincare, hair care, all those kind of products, because talk about endocrine disruptors. Like, and I'm not 100% like, I mean, I put on, Friday's our makeup day and I put on makeup that is not natural. And as I was putting it on, I was thinking like, I need to go 100% all natural. So that episode, it's coming up. I don't know when, but it's coming up. But if you were on this path of getting back to the way Mother Nature intended for you to live, birth control is definitely one of those areas that I think a lot of people that are listening are like, okay, I've needed to hear this. Just know that you can get off of birth control. I don't care how long you've been on it.
Yeah.
it would be nice if you could find an integrative or functional medicine doctor that is Western and Eastern minded that can help you get off of that. There's definitely, some nice supplementation that can help that process. But here's the deal with supplements. If your diet isn't fixed, the supplements are just like a Band-Aid and they're not going to do anything. Like you have to address your nutrition and the food that you're eating. And if you're not eating whole natural foods and giving your body the micro and macronutrients that it was designed to have, I don't care how much money you spend on supplements, how high quality they are and where they come from. It's not gonna, like, you need to focus on nutrition, and that's the hardest part, obviously. But just know that you can do it, and your body will thank you ultimately. It's when you get back to nature and the way we were intended to live, your body finally gets into sync and it functions the way it's supposed to. So any other things that we need to address before we end this much needed episode?
I mean, we covered a lot in this episode and we're just scratching the surface.
I know. And I feel like we just literally touched the tip of the iceberg, right?
Yeah.
Man. Okay, cool. Well, thank you guys so much for listening to this episode of Fitz and Healthy podcast. We appreciate every single person that goes to our podcast, downloads it, subscribes to it, leaves a review. Shout out to all the reviews. I don't even know total review number that we're at, but I know that the fact is, we didn't even talk about our big episode coming up. Of the celebrity that reached out to us.
Oh, that's right.
Yes, dude. How did we forget that?
Did you see the gerbils start
yes, I did.
kind of move on the wheel? It was like.
So obviously this episode will probably be released in August. It might jump after this particular episode that we're going to film on August 23rd.
Awesome.
I still can't believe it. So long story short, at this moment in time, we literally haven't even been in podcast for 3 months.
No.
Like it's what, July 20 something, 27th, 28th and 28th. And so we launched May 1st. So literally in a few days, we're going to celebrate 3-month birthday, right?
Woo!
We're at 70,000 downloads. And how many reviews do we have, Robert? 149. That's freaking
Which is
awesome.
crazy because when you and I were together two weeks ago, we were at 60,000 downloads.
That's crazy. That's awesome. So
crazy.
So for anyone that is familiar with the paleo world, CrossFit world, or primal world, the name Mark Sisson will be like, oh, hell no. Really? So literally, now, not Mark Sisson himself, because he's like a legit celebrity, but Mark Sisson's people reached out to us to ask if we wanted to interview him about his book that's coming out in October. It's called The Keto Reset Diet. And I mean, I've listened to him on podcasts before. I have his book. I have it right here. Boom. I didn't even I've actually recommended this book in past Lauren live broadcast. This guy is so well known, well respected. He's an endurance athlete that he's written the Primal Blueprint, Primal Endurance, a few other books. Mark's Daily Apple is probably the most popular health and fitness website. Produces blogs every day. So the fact that his people reached out to us to interview him, I'm still wigging out. Not going to lie.
I'm still trying to figure out how he found us.
I know, right?
Because we're podcast babies. We've only been around for less than 90 days.
Yeah. And there's so many other podcasters out there. So legit, my podcast, gurus that I look to, they are only the ones that have interviewed him. So I'm trying to wrap my brain around this, but we have no connection to him whatsoever. So it's like legit, I mean, because we've interviewed a couple of celebrities. Melissa. She's Melissa McAllister.
She hates when we call her a celebrity.
I know. I know, but the fact is that she's well known in the health and fitness world.
Yeah, she is.
But we're friends with her. We're close, I mean, so that really, it doesn't officially count. And then Chris Downing, that's the other celebrity that we have interviewed. But the fact is that I was in his test group. And so I have his phone number in my phone, and we've become friends since the whole, Ship Shop thing happened. So this is the first legit celebrity that neither you nor I have any connection to.
I definitely have no connection.
Oh, yeah. It's crazy. So I know this has nothing to do with birth control, but
we just needed to fangirl for a second.
We definitely needed to do that. And just a huge shout out to every person that's listening, because I mean, truly, I think that the reason why that happened is because we have 70,000 downloads in the first 3 months, and it's you guys. Yeah. So every single person that's listening, just huge shout out to you guys. Thank you so much for giving us this platform. I don't know if people realize, but we don't make money off of this podcast. No. This is truly to empower people, to give them knowledge so that they can change their lives, because we've been able to do that. We're still on the journey of doing that. We're learning new stuff every single day, and we don't know everything. But as we learn stuff, we like to share it with you guys, and we just appreciate you guys supporting us along this journey, because it's a pretty awesome journey so far.
So cool.
And on that note, I think that you should leave them with some good thoughts, Cinthanie.
All right, you guys, you are a good person and you deserve good things to happen to you.
Amen. Amen. Hope you guys have a great day. We will see y'all on the next episode of the Fitz and Healthy podcast. Ciao. Make sure that you find us on social media. You can find Cinthanie on Instagram and Facebook at Cinthanie. So that's CINTHANIE, and on Snapchat at Cinthanie P. And find me on social media platforms like Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter, all at Club Fitz Fitness. Remember, that's FITZ Fitness. And on Snapchat, just at Club Fitz. I appreciate your time listening so much. If you enjoyed this episode of the Fitz and Healthy podcast, can you please go do me a favor and go subscribe at whatever platform that it is that you listen to podcasts. Leave a review. We read every single review, and we appreciate the time that you take to leave your thoughts and opinions. Now, also remember, while I am a medical doctor, the information I provide here is not intended to provide medical advice or a professional diagnosis, opinion, treatment, or services to you or to any other individual. I am providing general information for educational and informational purposes only, and it is not a substitute for medical or professional care. You should not use this information in place of a visit, call, consultation, or the advice of your physician or other healthcare provider. The information I share is not intended to treat, cure, or diagnose any disease or medical condition. If you believe you have a medical emergency, just call 911 immediately or your physician. Now, enough of that medical legal jargon. Thank you so much for listening to this podcast. I appreciate your time. Now, go live a Fitz and Healthy life.